It's time to understand exactly what ascension is and to start preparing for it now. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I help people to spiritually awaken so they can enter a conscious path of ascension. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what ascension is and how you can start to prepare yourself now. So let's begin by taking a look at the highest form of ascension, which is actually the most natural form. Now, this type of ascension does not currently take place on our planet, but I want you to know about it so you can have a glimpse of our much higher destiny. Now, the interesting thing is that the universe that we live in does not currently support this highest and most natural form of ascension. And that's because this entire universe is fraught with duality and a very faulty perception of reality. And that's what we're all in the process of evolving out of. And this universe is actually in a much larger process of evolving out of it as well. You see, the truth is that this entire universe needs to be restored to its original, most pure state of harmonic balance and perfection. See, anyone who tells you that ascension is only about planet Earth doesn't fully know the entire story. And this is one of the main reasons that I'm always talking about the fact that we need to understand that we live in a larger extraterrestrial universe of life. Because until we fully understand that, we really don't have the bearings to know exactly where we are. See, the lie that the universe is one big void with no one else out there keeps us trapped with no reference points whatsoever when it comes to ascension. It's one of the most disempowering lies that we as a collective humanity have been told. And unfortunately, probably because of school, most people have bought into it. So I'm sharing about this highest form of ascension with you to give you guys a much needed expanded point of reference. See, because the best way to accelerate our own ascension process is to know exactly what it is we are aiming for in the longer run of our larger evolution. So basically, in what I call the real world or the real universe, ascension is as natural as breathing. Here's how it works. Let's say you go to a certain planet or a certain world or a certain dimension of reality, and you take on or create an embodiment that corresponds to the nature of that world. That body and you exist as one and the same. A perfect high-frequency version of your own unique self. There is no separation between you and your body. So then whenever you are finished in that particular world, you transmute that body into the high-frequency light that you are, and you thus become even more empowered with more substance and more experience as a creator. So that is how you actually evolve into a more and more expanded version of who you really are in the real universe. You never ever leave some piece of yourself behind to be recycled by the planet that you spent time on. I mean, that just does not happen in a higher reality. So ascension in this case is literally how you transition from one reality into another reality or dimension. The body always goes with you because it is you. It's actually not even a big deal in those higher realities and higher universes. So ultimately, that is the highest level of ascension that we're all trying to get back to. That's us in our natural state. But in order to get back to that, we have to evolve. We have to evolve out of this crazy duality and this crazy situation that we find ourselves in. Now, here's the problem that we have in our current situation. In our current situation, there is a distinct separation between ourselves and our bodies. The only way to leave the planet and leave this reality is to drop your body and leave it behind. And here's something even more weird about that. We are not even able to just consciously drop our bodies because we're so identified with them in a state of pure fear and survival. Our bodies literally have to be destroyed or just age out in order for us to be able to leave this planet. I mean, that is completely crazy. So if you really think about this, if you really consider it, you can see that there's a good amount of evolution that needs to take place in order for us to solve this problem. And you should also know that our individual evolution is directly tied to the evolution of the larger universe, because that's the space that we are living in. So it's up to us as creators to wake up, free our minds from the grip of the controllers, and start participating in a meaningful, conscious way with the higher forces who are working to evolve this entire universe as a whole. Now let's take a few moments to dispel a few myths about our evolution and about our ascension process. If you understand what I've said so far, then you recognize that the level of evolution that I'm talking about requires active participation on our part as creators. This high level of participation cannot come from us if we are cosmically insecure and regard ourselves as completely controlled slaves. So here is the first big issue that we have to solve. A lot of people believe that ascension is a passive experience. And I think that religions are largely responsible for this mindset. Many religions have their own simplistic version of ascension. Here's what it looks like. Follow the rules and do what we say. If you do, then God will reward you by raising you up to a higher level. Doesn't this sound familiar? It kind of reminds me of school. Do what the teacher in authority says, and you will get a higher grade on your report card and be allowed to go to a higher grade level with your friends. Do you see the pattern here? Everything is about following some authority's rules in order to be rewarded and allowed to go to the next level. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the spiritual community have adopted this very same pattern of thinking when it comes to ascension. It's like, follow this checklist of rules and you are guaranteed to ascend. So then what you eat becomes a rule. Whether or not you meditate every day becomes a rule. I've even heard that if you are 51% a good person, then you will ascend. What does that even mean, guys? A good person according to who? See, when you make ascension be about a checklist of rules that you need to follow in order to ascend, the problem that I see with that is that it just creates a lot of paranoia, a lot of anxiety, a lot of self-judgment, confusion, like, am I really doing it? Am I doing the right thing? Does this mean I'm going to ascend? And you end up with just in a state of real anxiety and fear. Or on the other hand, you could just erroneously judge yourself as, yep, check that, check that, check that. I guess that means for sure I'm going to ascend. See, this way of looking at ascension taps right into our highly conditioned, what I call our school brain. It's like, I did my ascension homework and now I'm guaranteed to ascend. See, we are so used to following the rules. We're so used to doing what we're told. Sometimes I think that the most popular question that we humans on this earth have is this: please just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. Give me an instruction and I'll do it. And the weird thing is, I know when I say that, it probably sounds like completely rational and completely logical. The problem is, we're looking for all those instructions on the outside from some external authority. We're not looking for the knowledge that we need. We don't need instructions, you guys. We need knowledge. That knowledge comes from our hearts. So I can say this stuff to you, but it's not going to do you any good unless you check in with your heart and see if what I'm saying resonates with you at the level of your heart and your inner being. And from there, all by yourself, you will be able to tap into your own inner wisdom and have a pure knowing more and more and more, the more that you deprogram that school-like brain, you will come into your infinite wisdom of who you really are, and you'll start to know things that will really surprise you. You just have to trust your own wisdom. See, because if the only thing we know how to say is, please just tell us what to do, if that's all we know, then we are just like highly programmable robots waiting for the next instruction, waiting for the next authoritative installment into our minds. Guys, this is not how you ascend at the highest level. I mean, a big part of our evolution is going to involve deprogramming ourselves and learning to think for ourselves again, learning to intuit life, intuit wisdom, tap into our hearts, learning how to do all of those things again, because we're so programmed in this society, in this reality, that we have just completely blocked all of our access off to what we are actually capable of knowing all by ourselves. So this is really about how we hear information. Are we hearing it, looking for that next instruction, that next to-do list, that new set of rules? Is that how we're hearing? Are we hearing through that filter? Or are we hearing information, seeking to find that which resonates with our inner wisdom so that we can ignite our own wisdom and expand our consciousness so that we become truly empowered as the creators that we are? So this is not so much about information that you hear, it's more about how you process it. What is the filter that you're hearing it through? Because whatever filter you're hearing it through is going to determine what you actually do with the information you hear. Now, if your main focus is looking for an outside authority to tell you what the new ascension rules are, that can lead to a certain perception of a type of what I guess we could call low-level ascension, which, if you look at the purity of true natural ascension, it's not really ascension at all. I would say that low-level ascension is when you get into things like the solar flash and being taken up in spaceships and things like that. Now let's just think about that idea of spaceships in the solar flash for a moment. It's not that those things aren't possible, but I just want to give you another perspective on how you can see that situation. Let's say that we do have a solar flash and you get taken up in a spaceship and moved to another planet on a purely physical level. All of your fears, all of your patterns, and all of the things that you're attached to in your perception are going to go there with you. So let's think about this scenario on a purely practical level. What if that new planet already has humans living on it with a completely different culture? Are you going to be able to adapt? What about things like food? Is your body going to be able to seamlessly mesh with that new environment? Because it's never going to be exactly like the Earth. And let's just say that all of those kinds of things were to be ironed out. Then what is your purpose going to be on that new planet? And who's going to decide that when you don't really know anything about what's actually going on? See, this is the kind of thing that nobody ever talks about. It's all just one big assumption. And here's another thought. Who's going to organize thousands and thousands of humans who were just dropped off on a new planet and who have only known a life of living as highly controlled slaves under some authority figures? People who are mentally crippled and unable to think for themselves. I mean, people who didn't even know there was an actual universe of life out there. And people who are also likely extremely traumatized. Somebody's going to have to organize that situation. And it won't be the Earth humans who are clueless. See, here's the thing you want to consider. Wherever your consciousness is right now is what matters. If you were going to be moved to another planet, you would have to be moved to a place that corresponds to your current level of consciousness. And if your consciousness is limited to the following, I did everything I was told, now don't I get to ascend? Then you are still in that school religious mindset that's been perpetrated by the controllers. So being taken up in a spaceship is not actually true ascension. It's just being moved to a different location for a different purpose. You're still going to have to evolve to get to a higher level of reality. See, the time to evolve is now, you guys. There's nothing to wait for. So one of the main things that I'm hoping to accomplish with this video is to dispel the myth that ascension is a passive experience. I also want to dispel the myth that merely checking off a list and doing what you're told will automatically lead to ascension. And I know that's a really hard one because school and society and religions have been very, very efficient at teaching us not to think for ourselves. See, here's the position we've been put in. We live in a perpetual state of fear and anxiety, waiting for the next set of instructions from some authority so we know what to do. Because without instructions from an outside authority, we often don't even know what to do with ourselves. And that is complete and total slave behavior, you guys. And slaves don't really ascend. I mean, doesn't that make sense when you just look at it? See, what I try to do with a lot of my videos is to help you learn to start thinking for yourself. And that's not easy to do because we have these slave brains that will keep demanding a new set of rules and instructions. I mean, a slave brain literally doesn't know anything else. That's how deep the programming is. Okay, so let us talk now about an ascension path in our current situation. The first thing you need to do is to give up the idea that ascension is passive. Ascension requires evolution, and that requires work on our parts. It starts with knowing what to focus on as your ultimate destination. That's why I shared the highest form of ascension with you at the beginning of this video. See, that's the level of cosmic freedom that we want to be aiming for. And even if it doesn't appear that it can happen in this lifetime, you still want to retain that focus as your ultimate destination. And here's why. Because you are more than this lifetime. You're not going to die. So you need to keep that focus on that highest possible destination to maintain your evolution throughout everything. Because that's what's going to give you the wisdom to be able to see everything that is wrong on this planet and not buy into it anymore. And here's one more point that I think is probably obvious, but just let me make it really clear. It is absolutely essential to your successful evolution that you do not just merely believe everything I'm saying. Believing someone because they seem to know things that maybe you haven't heard of only puts you into a state of unconscious acceptance. And that is not going to help you. So you want to shift away from just believing things into instead looking to see if what you hear or if any part of what you hear feels resonant within your being. See, that is a very, very different approach. You see, tuning into what resonates for you is a key part of your awakening. It makes you more conscious and it ultimately empowers you as a sovereign creator. So when I put out information in my videos, I do so as an invitation. I really like to do it in the spirit of, hey, here are some things to think about. Just contemplate this and see what happens. See if any part of it resonates for you. See, the bottom line is it's entirely up to you. It's 100% up to you as a creator to know what resonates for you. And here's another little thing I want to point out to you guys. One of the biggest problems with our planet is that it's all about being told what is supposed to resonate for you. And if what you're being told doesn't resonate for you, well then according to this world, it means there's something wrong with you. Guys, that is completely insane. That is a state of being completely controlled. If you believe that what some outside authority tells you is supposed to and must resonate with you, or there's something wrong with you, that is totally backwards. You know, I was just thinking too that if everyone just merely honored the fact that it's really about taking in information to see if it resonates or not, and everybody honored that, and we honored that for each other, do you realize how many arguments would end? Do you realize how much discord and fighting would stop? How much more peace we would have instantly? How much judgment would go away? I mean, it's kind of amazing when you think about it, because if we did that, we would actually be positioning ourselves to honor each other as creators who are trying to evolve. Okay, so let's go back to what I wanted to share with you about our ascension path in our current situation. The reason people talk so much about 5D consciousness is because you have to shift your consciousness before anything meaningful can take place. So ascension always starts with an ascension of consciousness first. So the idea of 5D is a great marker to give us something to aim for, starting with our own consciousness, because you have to first be somewhere in your conscious experience before you can experience a physical manifestation of that vision. Now, as a humanity, I'm sure that many of us are pretty sick and tired of having to deal with all the perils of duality. If we are truly honest with ourselves and listen to our hearts, I'll bet that most of us are sick and tired of death, suffering, lies, violence, etc. But if we continue to anchor our consciousness in that reality of fear, we cannot experience anything differently. So what the controllers are trying to do right now is to keep us anchored in that negative experience by removing anything and everything that brings us hope, joy, optimism, abundance, and a love for each other. That's what these totalitarian lockdowns are all about. They're about removing all avenues for joy. See, they are trying to seize total control of our consciousness so that we cannot even get our consciousness to ascend to a 5D level. Now, we can either succumb to that, or we can focus on taking back control of our minds. So here's the important thing. Taking back control of your mind and your consciousness is literally the first most important step in your ascension process. Stop positioning yourself as a slave to authority, and that includes spiritual authorities, when it comes to how you look at everything. Instead, as I said before, look for what resonates for you. What feels true for you in your heart. And then the next thing you want to do is align yourself with certain basic fundamental principles of ascension. The first most important principle is self-love. You need to genuinely care for and love yourself, because that is your natural state. And if you don't feel that, it's because someone or something outside of you has convinced you otherwise. You need to stop aligning your consciousness with negative thinking against yourself. Now, the next most important principle of ascension has to do with aligning with yourself as an energy being. Even your physical body is energy. So start looking at your physical body as pure energy. Make an effort to experience it as that pure energy. That's going to help to elevate your consciousness to the highest possible level for you right now. And then once you realize that it's all energy, the next thing you want to consider is the vibrational range of that energy. You need to create a supportive physical environment that assists you in keeping your vibration as high as possible. This includes fulfilling your body's basic needs for sleep, nutrition, and exercise. It includes living a healthy lifestyle that keeps you connected to nature. And it could also include making your home a peaceful sanctuary in whatever way you can. It's important that you have some kind of quiet, physical space that can serve as a refuge for your consciousness and your inner work. If you feel that your life is lacking in any of these areas, then create a vision for positive change. Don't look for excuses or for reasons why it can't change. Instead, look for ways that you can shift out of that situation. Use your creativity, and you can also always ask your angels and your guides for help. Now, the reason that I suggested that you look at your physical body as energy is because that will instantly give you a way to see where you are vibrationally and what you need to do to improve your situation. So now let's put all of this together in very simple terms. Ascension is happening constantly. It's a process. It's a process that requires your effort to evolve as a being. Here's how you can start every day. You can start each day by asking yourself a simple question. How can I elevate my consciousness and my life today? And then do your best to make an effort to do that. When you approach life in this way, then you will be actively engaging in your own ascension process. You will absolutely be on the ascension path. And this is very different than just sitting back and waiting for something to happen, or waiting for some spiritual authority to give you a new set of instructions. Now, I'm not trying to say that leaders in the spiritual community are saying things that you shouldn't listen to. That's not what I'm saying at all. Remember what I said earlier, you guys. It's not about what they're saying. It's not about possible instructions. It's not about that at all. It's really about how you are positioned in relationship to it. It's really about how you're taking it in. So I don't want you guys to think for a minute that I'm in some way criticizing anybody who's giving any sorts of instructions or information about ascension. That's not what this is about. This is about what you yourself are doing with that and how you are approaching it. Because I think there's a lot of great information out there, and a lot of different people are talking about this from a lot of different angles. So you have an awful lot to choose from, you guys. The important thing is, what are you doing with what you hear? And I want to just mention one more quick thing about what happens when you just wait around for ascension to happen. Waiting around is going to leave you feeling ultimately disempowered and very disillusioned. See, waiting around for ascension is about as effective as sitting in your car and waiting for it to drive you somewhere. You're not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. You actually have to take command of the controls of that car and drive it to where you want it to go. Likewise, you need to take command and control of your consciousness, of your mind, and your life. And then start moving yourself by beginning with moving your consciousness to a higher level of reality where you really want your soul to reside. So I hope you found this information helpful and supportive of you coming into alignment with yourself, feeling empowered as a creator and as a sovereign being. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would find this information valuable. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I am here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and positive energy, and I so look forward to seeing you in the next video. Namaste.